Good morning. We'll call to order the special called school board meeting of Tuesday, May 27, 2025. We will start this morning with the Pledge of Allegiance led by School Board Member Don Peters. If you would please stand for the pledge. Please be seated. The first item on our agenda, amendments to the agenda. Mr. Hendrick, do you have any amendments?
Yes, Madam Chair, there is one amendment. Item 5.4, approve the apprenticeship training agreement with Livingston Academy. Has been pulled. It'll be taken to the June 10th agenda. It was pulled last night. Just a few updates need to be done, and we'll get that to the board June 10th.
Thank you. As a board member, I would like to pull item 5.2 for discussion. Board members, any other changes, amendments to the agenda? Let me make sure we can, so you see 5 of us here. We have 2 board members on Zoom. Let me make sure we can hear from them. Ms. Edmond and Mrs. Myers?
Mrs. Hine, I was going to pull agenda 5.2 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Meyer, I just want to make sure we can hear you. Okay, so we'll listen in. So for now, six board members. As board
Good morning,
chair,
this is Mrs. Meyer, and I am in attendance.
Great, okay. Thank you, Stephanie. I just want to make sure we were all here.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
As board chair, I find good cause to amend the agenda as suggested by Mr. Hendrick and myself and Ms. Edmond. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as amended?
Move for approval. Second.
Motion from Mrs. Kane and a second from Mrs. Long. Next item on the agenda, public comments on agenda items. Mrs. Hauk, do we have any speakers today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 4 speakers this morning. The first 2 are William Beers and Reagan Miller.
Thank you.
Members of the board, my name is William Beers, and I'm here today not just as a parent of 2 Madeira students. I'm here as a community member or as an educator, but I'm here as someone who has witnessed leadership in action. I'm speaking about Principal Atik of Madeira Beach Fundamental, a man whose impact on our school has been nothing short of transformational. In a year that tested every measure of resilience, with 2 hurricanes damaging the very structure of our school, Mr. Atik didn't just show up, he led us. He led with strength, with compassion, and with vision. He comforted scared students, supported overwhelmed staff, and coordinated with families. Madeira Beach didn't just survive these disasters. We came through them united and stronger than ever, and that's because of Mr. Atik. Beyond crisis management, Mr. Atik for 16 years has built a school culture rooted in respect, accountability, and excellence. Students feel safe, teachers feel valued, parents feel heard. His presence is not just wanted, it is essential. This isn't about a position, it's about a person who has become the heart and soul of a school. You don't remove the heart from something and expect it to keep thriving. I ask you to pause and truly consider the message this decision sends at a time when stability is rare, when great leadership is hard to find. We have something exceptional right here. Why move what is working so well? Let me put it plainly. You don't bench your star quarterback during the playoffs. You don't trade your MVP while they're carrying the team. Replacing Mr. Atik now would be like the equivalent of pulling a winning coach mid-championship season. Not because he failed, but because he succeeded. And finally, after everything he endured, after guiding his school through literal storms, Mr. Atik deserves the chance to see Madeira Beach fully restored, to see the repairs to the middle school through, to stand with his staff, his students, his families, and see that the finishing touches are all done, and then stand together and say, hey, we did this together. Please, for the students, for the staff, and for the spirit of Madeira Beach Fundamental, keep Mr. Atik where he belongs, at Madeira Beach. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board, Superintendent Hendrick and staff. My name is Reagan Miller, and I am speaking this morning on behalf of myself, but also for my 13-year-old who couldn't be here because he has to take 2 finals today. He really did want to be here. We are both urging you to keep Principal Chris Atik at Madeira Beach Fundamental. There are several critical reasons why this decision deserves your careful reconsideration. First, our school community has endured tremendous trauma this year. After Hurricane Helene forced us off campus, it's only been about 8 weeks since our entire student body was finally reunited on one campus. Even now, many students and teachers have not yet returned to their regular classrooms. Our students are still recovering from a year of instability. The stability that Mr. Atik provides is not optional, it is essential. For our stability for our students should be the top priority of this school district. Second, this district has long emphasized the importance of the student experience, especially the middle school experience. Mr. Atik is an incredibly effective leader for this age group. He understands the middle school students better than almost anyone I know, and he is a positive and consistent role model who helps create a safe and focused learning environment. Third, let's talk about parental rights. The families at Madeira Beach Fundamental actively choose this school, and that choice comes with commitment. There are long wait lists every year, and we follow a more rigorous set of rules to be part of this community. I personally drive over 30 minutes one way so my child can attend this school. School board members are elected to represent us. Please do not disregard the voices of parents and rubber stamp a decision that has not been explained and does not appear to serve the best interests of our children. Finally, if a change in leadership is being considered, there must be a better process. We were informed by email just last week that Mr. Atik would be leaving with no additional information. That is not how thoughtful, student-centered transition should begin. You're dealing with our children. We deserve better communication and a plan that demonstrates care and intention. We are asking you, please listen to the families of Madeira Beach, honor our choice, honor our voices, and above all, honor the stability our students so desperately need by keeping Mr. Atik as principal. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next 2 speakers are Yanya Pasakora and Leanne Ross Works.
And if Leanne is here, you can come up to the other podium. Or either. You can go to that one if you're Leanne. Is Yana here? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Leanne Ross Works. I am here today on behalf of my family and several other of my families within my community that were not able to attend today. Like some of the other parents that have come in and spoken this morning, we were very upset to learn about Mr. Atik's potential removal from Madeira Beach Fundamental, and as the last lady just spoke about the lack of information, the lack of details, the lack of supporting as to the why. Mr. Atik has been instrumental in both of my students' learning this year. I have 2 students currently at Madeira Beach, and my 3rd is coming in for kindergarten. When we moved here in 2021, we purchased our home based on the proximity to Madeira Beach, based on all of the reviews and what we learned about all the different schools. So we actually walk to school every day, and it is phenomenal. We appreciate all of Mr. Atik's leadership and how he handles everything across the board. He is on site every morning and every afternoon. He is out in the car lines, guys. He is dressed up for every single day. His presence is felt. I cried when I came back on site. I was after the hurricanes. He is not only a principal, he provides values that he not only holds his students and staff to, he upholds himself. And to have that type of a leader in your community and in your classroom on a daily basis just sets the tone for how everyone is to behave. and how everyone is to hold themselves. And I noticed that leadership at my home, even with my children, which, having a 10, an 8, and a 5-year-old, you don't expect to have leadership qualities coming home already. But he is developing these students, and I believe at this point in time, removing him when we are still in the middle of revamping our entire school would be detrimental. Again, we have seen him across the board, how he not only influences the students and the teachers and the entire staff, but also the community. The community rallies together. After the second hurricane, and we were at a different school, it was night and day between how our fundamental school operates and how the Southern Oak and Walsingham. Their schools are great, I'm sure, as well, but they don't have the commitment that our school has.
Thank you.
So I would appreciate it if we were able to take another look at that, please. Thank you.
The next speaker is Amy Smith.
It's Santon, but Smith is so much easier to pronounce, so I'll go by Amy Smith, but my name is Amy Santon. Thank you. So like Leanne here, I'm here to represent many parents that are not, and with a flexible schedule, to speak on behalf of the recent announcement or potential announcement of Mr. Atik's removal from Madeira Beach. And so I did not hear the comments prior to Leanne speaking, but I just want to bring us back a little bit. Not that any of us want to talk about the hurricane, because quite honestly, I think our kids are still PTSD, right? It was a lot going on. Our teachers as well went through a lot of change, as you all are probably very well aware, with their belongings and their classroom settings and some of the things that happen with that. And so I will tell you that, in my life experience, that sometimes the period after those events are the most critical. How we adapt, how we move on, how we evolve from those scenarios, and how our children do, more importantly, it is the after. I found the announcement, or the potential announcement, quite poorly announced at the wrong time. Our students, and I have a 4th grader there, I moved to Florida years ago, bought a house similar to the other lady that spoke, based on being hopefully selected for Madeira Beach and my daughter being selected. I was fortunate enough that she has been there since kindergarten. I've gotten to know the teachers, the staff, at a surface level, some more in depth. I've been very fortunate. My daughter has had 4 phenomenal teachers. I couldn't even say any of them were okay or great. Doesn't seem enough. They're phenomenal, and that's also due to Mr. Atik's leadership and influence over. But to be in a position where we just came off probably one of the most historically odd and tough school years, I think that the removal of him at this time is lack of acknowledgement of the year we've just had. And there were many families. I was not one of them. I lost a fence, some of the yard, and a tree fell. My home was not flooded, but to not represent those parents today that are still not in those homes, that lost all their belongings, and their children are not only affected at school with some of these changes this year, but affected at home, to then say that this next critical rebuild, if you will, of making them feel secure again, comfortable again, used to their routine again, safe again, and to remove the principal, the leader, the one that got them through this crazy year, I think is ill-placed. And I think it's not acknowledging that student base. And if you're not here for the children, I'm not sure why any of us are here. As parents, as board members, as staff, faculty at Madeira Beach, I think the right thing to do is to acknowledge what they've gone through and respect them enough in this moment of importance, and do the right thing by them and Mr. Atik and allow him.
Thank you. Madam Chair, there are no other speakers.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Item 5.3 remains on the consent agenda. So I'll take a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Was that you, Mrs. Kane? Ms. Blacksburg. Ms. Blacksburg. Motion by Ms. Blacksburg, a second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. So we'll address item 4.2, which was pulled from the consent agenda. I'll go ahead and start on that. Excuse me, 5.2, yes, 5.2. What did I say? 4.2, item 5.2, thank you. Thank you very much. So we've heard from a lot of families via email about the principal changes, and I just wanted to take a minute. I wanted to pull it and talk about it because it's important. These changes really matter. I'm a mom too. I have a 5th grader and an 8th grader, and the principals of both of my children's school are also changing. And so thank you for those who were able to come and speak today, Leanna, William, Amy, and Reagan. Thank you for being here in person. And we did see everybody's emails that were out there as well. So thank you for being in touch. I think, you all have maybe heard that I was in the Navy, and one of the things you'll hear me say often is that principals are captains of their ship. They set the tone, they set the expectations, they're responsible for academics, for buildings and grounds, for safety, for personnel, for their financials, but they're also responsible for the spirit of the place, right? You can tell when you first visit a school, when you first meet the principal, what that school feels like, what the spirit of that school is like. It's absolutely vital. They're both the face and the actual work that happens in a school. And I think it's because they're so vital that we all feel the change of them very, very deeply. And I think some of us feel it quietly, some of us feel it vocally. Some people think it's for the better, and some people think it's for the worse. But the fact is, everybody feels it. Everybody feels that change. So as I mentioned, I have a 5th grader and an 8th grader. In the recent years, I've become much more involved in the middle school. I'm treasurer of our PTA. I coach the boys' volleyball team. I drive to all the different sporting events. I've tutored Algebra 1 every other day for the last month, trying to get that push with the EOC. And through that involvement, through that parental involvement, which I imagine all of you all have, if you're engaged in this issue, I've come to know, support, and value the principals at my kids' school, as well as our teachers and staff. And as I said, they're both changing. But of course, most of the families we've heard from are from Madeira Beach. And certainly Madeira Beach went through its own trial this year with flooded. I mean, the schools that my children attend did not flood. Now they had teachers and staff who lost their homes. We've lost families. They've moved. They've left the state. We had classrooms with some volatility because of that. We had to, we pulled together response teams and things as well, but we certainly didn't have to move out of our school and move back in our school. So I want to acknowledge that and how difficult that must have been on you. And, but over the last week, since the administrative changes have come out, I've heard from a number of administrators, teachers, and families, and I love the conversations. And each one of the conversations is different because everyone has how they feel, again, whether it's quietly or vocally, or they're happy or they're sad, but everyone is different, everyone is important. So I guess what I'm trying to say, and it might not help, is that you're not in this alone, people who are speaking out about it. Another thing you might have heard me say before is that I feel like the school board is actually responsible for very few things, but they're very important things. We set the strategic plan, we set the budget, we hire the superintendent, and we each get to meet with the superintendent on a regular basis. He shares what's on his mind, what's going to be on our agenda coming up. We discuss it. We get to share what's on our mind. We discuss it. And so I can understand that this might feel like a rubber stamp that was mentioned. I can promise you that it's not, that there are a lot of discussions and visits, but I know you don't see them all. You see us up here, you see us going through the agenda items with a motion and a second and a this, and it can feel very robotic. It is not. We are all parents up here as well, so we feel it too. So we hired Mr. Hendrick 3 years ago as the captain of this ship, right? He's responsible for academics, for buildings and grounds. He's responsible for safety, for personnel, for financials, and he sets the tone of the entire district. And in my observation, personnel is first and foremost on his list. He knows every single leader at our schools, every single one, and takes the decisions of these changes very seriously. Because yes, we have to have the best curriculum and the best processes and procedures, but the most important thing to make those things have an impact is to have the right people in the right places. And he knows that. So I know these changes feel short notice to us. They even feel short notice to me, and I knew about them a little bit. But what I want to say is that in my observation, they have certainly been made thoughtfully. And because I know that, I do support the changes, and I'm going to ask you to support them as well. I do think we need to take the timing under consideration. You know, the end of the year is full of big emotion, right? We have the stress of taking tests. We have the fun of the end of the year parties or the graduations, and, you know, everybody's sort of running around, but it's good. It's joyful, it's stressful, it's everything. And to add this change into the heart of that is really hard on a school. It's really hard on the families. It's like you've got the chaos of everything, and now I have the chaos of getting my arms around this change. So I would like to recommend that we take the timing under consideration. I think it'd be nice if it happened a little bit earlier in the spring. You can celebrate the person who's going, you can welcome the person who's coming, we can all kind of get used to the idea and then be able to enjoy the end of the year. But that's into the future, and we can certainly talk about that more. You know, for me, and I just want to say this, at John Hopkins Middle School, where our principal, Mr. Carlman Jones, is going to be changing, he's going to Bay Vista Fundamental. I want to say that I will miss him. He's been a great leader. He's been a very good team member. I'm going to get a little emotional about it. And I think first and foremost, I trust him with my children. And that's how we feel about our principals, right? When we send our children to school every day. So it is important. And, you know, we don't know at John Hopkins, we don't know who our next leader is going to be yet. But what I do know is that I will continue to show up for PTA and SAC. I will continue to show up for the sports teams. And I will continue to tutor Algebra 1. Because yes, the principal is vital at our schools, but so too are you. So too are you. You make a difference. You make a difference to your teachers and your staff. When you welcome the new leader that comes to your school that matters, you help them set the tone. So if you're this involved to be here and you're this involved to communicate with us, I'm just going to ask you to continue to be involved in your school. You set the tone for your children in your school, and I would ask you to continue to do that. I do support the personnel recommendations as proposed by Mr. Hendrick. Other board members, Ms. Peters, I see your name here.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Ms. Peters, just before we continue, I think we need a motion and a second to put the item on the table.
Oh, thank you. Sure. May I have a motion and a second to approve item 5.2? Motion from Mrs. Peters and a second from Mrs. Long. Thank you. Ms. Peters, you have comments?
Thank you, Mrs. Hine. I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything or what I was going to say, but I second everything that you've just said regarding Mr. Ateek. We have received many, many communications. I am a resident of Madeira Beach. I've been displaced as well, so I do personally know what is going on in that community. I've been to see Mr. Ateek and his staff several times throughout this process. Wow, I didn't know I was going to get emotional. But I do also appreciate the leadership of Mr. Hendrick and our staff here at the district. And my daughters went to 3 schools in Pinellas County. We had changes, you know, in principal and leadership while they were at their schools. And it was always, oh no, someone's leaving. But then there's great excitement in change. And as a young person, my dad's job moved us around a lot, and there was always, you know, it was always, you know, you were nervous to go somewhere new and have some change and, you know, be that new person. But then you got there and you realized that there was some really great excitement to that. And every time I moved, either as a young person or within my work life, there's the hesitation and kind of the anxiety of it, and then you get there and you learn and you grow, and everybody around you benefits from the experiences of each other in those changes. And, you know, the staff isn't all moving. Mr. Ateek is moving, and again, these changes aren't made lightly. There's a lot of conversation that goes into these decisions from both sides, from all sides, from many sides, and we get to see that behind the scenes as well. I welcome Miss Athenson. I have not met Miss Athenson yet, but I fully intend to be there and support her in the same way I've been just visiting Mr. Ateek and his staff, just to show that we're here and we're there to support the transitions and the things that have been going on last year. I've gotten a lot of texts regarding this change, again, as I live in that community. So I think we should all embrace the changes. There's a lot of changes here on the agenda, and I just support it and appreciate the work that has gone on at Madeira, but it's going to continue to go on and with a fresh set of eyes, and I'm looking forward to see what she brings to our school. Thanks.
Ms. Blacksburg?
First and foremost, thank you all for being here today and voicing your concerns. I think parental involvement in our schools is essential for the success of our students and the district. I think that part of making these decisions, we have to trust and rely on our leadership, same way that we trust and rely on our teachers to do their jobs every day. We as a board trust our superintendent and his immediate executive team to make those decisions. However, I think that we as a district and leadership need to look at the way these changes are communicated. I understand that, I'm new to this job as well, so I'm learning a lot as I go. And I understand that sometimes when leadership, specifically principals, change, there's a lot that goes into them. They could be personal reasons, they're professional, they're developing, they are able to pursue other opportunities to develop professionally. However, I think that taking into consideration that a principal is the leader of their school, they are the face of the school, they are a lot of times what makes or breaks staff and how well they are able to communicate and how they are able to effectively lead a team. So I understand where everyone's coming from. However, I think as a district, we really need to take a look at the way this is conveyed in a way that people understand, because an email on a Thursday to say, I'm not going to be back next year and give no explanation, I think it descends everyone into a little bit of chaos. There's not facts, so you're forced to sort of supplement and decide for yourself, or the rumor mill starts, and it just snowballs into something that could very easily be an email, a conversation where the person that's moving feels comfortable, administration feels comfortable with the response, but most importantly, the parents that entrust us every day with their kids feel comfortable with the decisions being made.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Mrs. Meyer.
Please go ahead, Mrs. Meyer.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the same sentiments of my fellow board members who have spoken already. I support Mr. Hendrick and his leadership and his expertise. And as well, I completely understand and empathize with the speakers today and all of the emails that we've received. But at the end of the day, I do believe that Mr. Hendrick is an excellent leader, and I support his decision to make this move. I do want to mention that I do have a hard break at 11 o'clock and will not be able to continue on the call any longer. So I wanted to voice now that I am a yay, aye for this vote in support of agenda item 5.2.
Thank you, Mrs. Meyer.
Thank you.
Ms. Kane?
Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Long have both also pushed their button to speak, and you'd like to speak, Mrs. Edmond? Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing? Can we? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Edmond.
Thank you. Mr. Kopersky, would you please share the state statute regarding the school board's powers and duties as it relates to this topic?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Ms. Edmond and board members. Mr. Hendrick, as you recall, there are certain rules and statutes that relate to the powers and duties of superintendents and school boards. You've all learned those throughout your career, and even if you're brand new, you learned it during your orientation. One of the areas that is very crystal clear in Florida statutes relates to school boards' actions on personnel recommendations by superintendents. So whether that's a new appointment, a transfer, or any other type of personnel appointment action that could be recommended by the superintendent. And the Florida statutes make very clear that the superintendent has the power to make those recommendations, but unlike just about everything else on your agenda, your ability to turn that down is limited. And so if a majority of the school board wanted to vote down a personnel recommendation, you would need to identify good cause. And that is the phrase that is used in the statute, but essentially it means that the person is not qualified for the position. And there have been court cases on this over the years, and so reading those court opinions, it just becomes clear that the intent of that statute is that the school board adopt those recommendations unless the person is not qualified for the position. And so, Ms. Edmond, that is the statute on that. I don't want the board to think or the public to think that that means the school board has nothing to do with personnel. Of course, you have to adopt job descriptions. You have to vote on the minimum qualifications of every position in the district. You have to vote on the pay grade, the title of that job description in that position, and you have done that. But having done that, now the power of the statutes is given to the superintendent to make recommendations, and those recommendations need to be accepted, as I said, unless you have good cause. And as I've said up here over the years, I'm always prepared if I see that a majority of the board is looking to reject a personnel recommendation, I'm ready to jump in and give this advice and try to walk the board members through what might be good cause. But in short, it basically means that that person is not qualified for the position.
Thank you, Mr. Kopersky. And I did have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Vigu as well as Superintendent Hendrick and confirm that all of the individuals being recommended for appointment have been vetted by HR, so they meet the minimum qualifications. Now, the next two things I'd like to talk about are related to how this process works. Principals and APs don't have a bargaining unit. There is no one to advocate on their behalf, recognized as a collective bargaining unit by PERC. I would like to recommend that the district create procedures regarding this process so that it's clear and that they solicit feedback from PASA as well as people currently doing the work, just so the process doesn't appear to be what we've heard today, what we've seen in the emails, and what our individual communication may have shown or told us. And I just know that teachers have a bargaining agent through PESPA and PCTA to advocate on their behalf, but not the administrators. It would probably be helpful if there was a timeline of knowing when a recommendation for transfer would occur, or if an administrator is not going to have their contract renewed at that school site because they are receiving annual contracts. And as the parents mentioned earlier, the communication piece, we know how important communication is. We also know that some of the feedback we receive from stakeholder surveys is that we can do better on communication. and some of the issues or challenges that have came up throughout the year. Communication has been a big piece from stakeholders, better communication. So I would like to, again, recommend the district creates procedures regarding this process that are clear and definitive for the people involved in that position, as well as have clear communication for parents and stakeholders when the transition is occurring. And also knowing that Superintendent Hendrick and his team takes a lot into consideration. Some of that information may or may not be shared with the public. There has to be a way to communicate the why of transitions that occur, so it doesn't feel as if, we're making this move and parents, students, teachers feel slighted. So those are my two recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Kapersky, for making it clear as what the role or what state statute requires the board to do in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kane?
Thank you so much. I like to step back from it and just listen to the perspective of each person here on the board, and I appreciate all my colleagues and everything that you have said this morning. Also, thank you, Mr. Kapersky, for pointing out that important piece of statute, because I think by the outpouring of our community, it's very clear that Mr. Key is very qualified for the position, very qualified for either position based on that. And to see this kind of community outpouring is in such a positive way is such, to me, it's very touching, and it's also speaks so highly of him as a leader in our community. And I'm sure he has to be very proud to hear from so many of his parents and community of what an incredible and exceptional job he has done leading his school. I have to agree with Ms. Blacksburg and also Ms. Edmond in the sense of communication, because I do think that breakdown in trust between our community and the way that we are presenting a change such as this is so important. And I can see what an incredible leader that our principal has been, and what an amazing job he has done just by what all of our parents have had to say, what our community has to say, and what our students have to say about him. And it can be very scary to move forward with something new and into the unknown without an explanation. I do think that that is unfair. And so at this moment, I also want to say, in my experience, have just as many positive and wonderful things to say about our leader and superintendent, Mr. Hendrick. And so I've never known him to be militant to say, you know, we're doing this way and there's no conversation about it. And so knowing that about him, I just want to ask now at this moment, is there something we can say to these parents? Can you give us these reasons? Or, you know, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I know you don't like that, but I am putting you on the spot because I think it is so important for these folks who have taken the time out of their day to come here and speak on his behalf. So can we?
Absolutely, Mrs. Kane. And I was prepared to say something anyway. I was going to let the board finish first. A few things. First, just in terms of timing. Different districts do things different ways, and our district has done things differently for as long as I've worked in the district. And so do you announce things in the middle of the summer when no one's paying attention and there's not the ability for people to comment or do things or say goodbye? I don't think that's the appropriate time. Do you announce things earlier in the year? You can in some cases, but in other cases that disrupts the school significantly. And so the cadence that I've taken is to do so at the end of the year, which gives people the opportunity to speak to it, say goodbye, be honored, be supported, but also for the people who are changing to be able to start their new position and hire the staff for the new school they're going to and be able to work all summer in that position and not start in the middle of July. And so in terms of communication, you know, I think we could always do a little bit better. I think communication is critical. But one of the things in that is that we allowed the principals to speak to the staff. We allowed the principals to craft emails to families and those things and to be available. In fact, the area superintendents go to these communications with teachers and answer questions. And so it's not done on an agenda in the middle of the night and nobody knows why or how come or anything like that, but it's actually very public. Now, can communication be better? It can always be better, and I appreciate the feedback today, but that's the cycle and the why behind it. I would be stunned if after 16 years of leading a school in which he was the founding principal essentially because the school changed formats, if there weren't people who were screaming his praises. And of course there are. And of course I knew this was coming, which is why I told the board weeks ago, this is what's going to happen, right? But there's also a point where you say, do I not do this because I'm afraid that people may say, but I love this principal or I love that principal. And you have to do what's right. And while I appreciate the board saying we trust the leadership, I don't feel that trust is blind in any way. And it's not always easy to give every single reason, but I'll give what I can out of respect for all involved. While there are people here today, and certainly emails that I received this weekend, of which I read every single one of them, that are huge fans of Mr. Atik, and they should be, by the way. That is not the consistent communication that I have received all year long. And I've been in regular contact with the school all year long for a variety of reasons. As has been well documented, the district made mistakes this year with the school, and I stood in front of the faculty and talked about those things. But where we are is that what is the point that people being together for so long is actually not as productive as giving people a fresh start? And when I read every single email and I talk to every single stakeholder and I read every single comment in a survey and I look at all of those things together, and mostly also, by the way, speak to Mr. Atik multiple times. This was not a surprise. And he tells me thank you and I welcome the change. That's how I move forward with it. And so I know it's not popular, but I also know that for everybody to move forward is positive, and I mean that especially for our students, right? To have everybody moving in the same direction all the time is why it's critical. Could it keep the same? Of course it could. Everything could stay the same, essentially. But it is the right reason for the right time. That school will continue to thrive. They have outstanding teachers. They have outstanding scores. It is a great community, and it is not because of one person. It is because of tremendous parent involvement. It is because of absolutely brilliant students and phenomenal teachers, phenomenal teachers. And so it's for all those reasons that I made the recommendation. And by the way, the replacement, as was mentioned, Ms. Athenson, is someone who's experienced, who's fair, firm, consistent, present, outgoing, responsive. And also, it's not just about the person leaving, but the person coming in. And so those things have happened for those reasons. I know it's not always popular, but it is my recommendation.
Thank you so much for, I think that's what we need to hear. We need to hear those reasons. And I trust and I know that you would never do something like that without having conversations with that person as well. And I think that that's something that as a community needs to be considered too, because we know, being up here, I've been up here 7 years now and been through some tremendous community events, from COVID to all sorts of things, and the burden that those events place on a family, on a leader, on how they move forward is tremendous, and on their family. And so there could be, in consideration of things like this, those challenges that often go unspoken, often go untalked about, what leaders and leadership does go through in times of trial. And even if they succeed, even if they do an outstanding job, the emotional impact that can have on a family and a person is very immense. And I think that is something to consider too, in a move such as this, that those could have been some of the considerations that are not voiced. And so for the public and for the parents and the families who love this person, please continue to support him, because I'm sure in the aftermath of leading a school through these tremendous challenges, seeing the impact it's had on families and feeling responsible for their well-being and the well-being of the school has impacted him as well, even if he's come out on top and been an incredible leader. And I think we as a community need to rally around that, continue to support that, and the decisions that not only he has made, but in conjunction with the school district, because we're a team and we want to support each other regardless of the challenges that we're going through. And I don't think that he's being, replaced or, in a negative sense. We have an amazing person coming in to lead, who also deserves an opportunity to step in to fill those shoes and do an amazing job. And so from what I'm hearing, she's an incredible person as well. And maybe at this point, it's sort of one of those times where you can carry a heavy burden, but then at some point you need to share that burden with someone else to carry it the rest of the way up the mountain, because there's a point where it is heavy. And that's important to think about in leadership. And I think that our leadership has done an amazing job considering that, and maybe those conversations have been had. And I just want to point that out for community, because we need to continue to support him. That was a tough go, and no one knew that school was going to get hit the way that it was. And it's not just the school and the building and the rebuilding and going through construction, and that's stressful. If anyone has ever remodeled anything in their home, they know how stressful that is. But it's also seeing the impact on those families and those kids who've been displaced, and coming into school every day and knowing the challenges they're going through, and feeling as a leader and as their mentor that you need to step in and help in every way possible is an incredible, it's incredible, but it also can have a toll on a person too as well. And for them to continue to be fresh and continue to be ready to do their job at the best that they can, sometimes they might need to take a moment. And so I thank all the parents for coming today, because what you said was very impactful. Your support of the school is second to none, and it is a very special school, and it will continue to be, because it has community leaders and family leaders and parents who want to continue to support it and continue to be there for it. So I want to thank you all for the emails, for the words that you came today and took the time out of your day to support. It really is very meaningful. So thank you.
Mrs. Long?
This is very difficult on families. This is my 43rd year in Pinellas County Schools. And there was a time where Superintendent Howard Hinesley, and even a little bit with Dr. Grego, they moved principals no matter how much you loved the principal. And now remember, I'm a teacher, I'm a parent, and now a school board member. So driving in this morning, I was thinking all the aspects and what it means. Our principals they're not forced out after 7 years and sent to wherever without anyone talking to them. I loved Howard Hinesley, but he didn't care what the principal thought. 7 years, boom, you got to move them. And I was at a school where it was a beloved principal. Oak Grove was the top middle school at the time, and she was moved regardless. He told us that he wasn't going to move her, and then when school let out, 3 weeks into the summer, we all got a message she was moved. So as a teacher, I understand the emotional. My children all went through fundamental. They went to Curtis, they went to Clearwater fundamental, and my youngest went to Dunedin Fundamental High School. We went through some very tough times. When Linda Burris was moved from Clearwater Intermediate, it was unbearable. I thought, oh my God, how is the school gonna go? And I cried, I came down, I spoke, I was irritated, but the new principal came in and she did a phenomenal job. And my worrying ended up being not, it meant something, but I didn't really have to worry as much as I did. I trust Kevin Hendrick. I was the board chairman when he was hired. He has his heart and his soul in this. As a matter of fact, driving to work on my half-hour drive in, he was talking to me. And I asked a lot of tough questions, and we spoke about it. it isn't just the parents and the children, but it's Mr. Atik too. And sometimes change is awful, but it benefits some. And I can tell you that as when I worked in the school system, I was forced for a change. I didn't want it. But when I got there, it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me. So I hear all sides. I hear the parents. And as a parent, I get it. Believe me, I've been there, done that. As a teacher, I understand. As an acting assistant principal, I get it. Mr. Hendrick has an incredible job in the fact that he has to make sure every decision he makes doesn't just affect Madeira Beach, it affects Meadowlawn, it affects other schools. It's a process that you just have to accept. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but we have to think about the students, we have to think about the community, we have to think about the teachers, and we have to think about Mr. Atik. 16 years in one school, it actually gets harder because you're so familiar with everything. He's getting an opportunity that will help him grow as a person. I don't think you're ever too old to grow. And I understand all the concerns. Driving in, I started crying because I started thinking about how my husband and I and our children felt when their principals were moved. At least you didn't have enough time. I get that. I think that's the part that's making this so difficult for me. But it's been a strange school year. The hurricanes, lots of things that have happened that parents don't even know about because sometimes it's not appropriate. But you have to look, and as a board member, I have to look at all angles. And believe me, considering that I've been on every side of the discussion, it's tough. And we know we can't make everybody happy. But I know Melissa Atheson's very, very well. My husband worked with her at Osceola. She is an incredible human being. She's a mother. She understands. And I think you will be very happy with her. Yes, she's not Mr. Atik. But I think you are getting just, well, no, I know you are getting just equally qualified administrator. And change, children need to learn to adapt to change, because if you don't, in adulthood it becomes harder. They need to learn and meet different people and adapt. And so for that reason, I'm going to support Mr. Hendrick.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments. Just checking. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to approve item 5.2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And can we count Mrs. Meyer in this? So passes 7-0. The next item on the agenda is board member discussion. Any items to be introduced by the board? No? Have a great summer. Thank you all. Yeah, take good care. I'm sorry.
Advocacy chair.
Do we have an FSBA advocacy chair
Oh my
item?
gosh, I didn't even bring, yes, I did. Yes, I did bring that. Yes. So we need to have a discussion about the FSBA Advocacy Committee representative. So just as a reminder for everybody, because I needed to go back and look at this, when we name someone to be the FSBA Board of Directors, that's for a 2-year term. And we did that last summer in '24. And Lisa is the lead with Caprice as the alternate. And so that goes from 24 to 26 until next summer. But for the advocacy committee representative, it's only 1 year. And so for this last year, Caprice has been the lead and Lisa has been the alternate. And so it's time to name this year's lead and alternate for the FSBA advocacy committee representative. So would someone like to volunteer? Is there anybody interested in being that representative? Would Caprice, or no, yes, Caprice, you've been the advocacy committee representative for this past year. Would you explain to the board what that entails? Maybe she's off having a good summer since I...
Maybe she disconnected when she thought the meeting was over.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying, because I...
Wait, Jen is giving a thumbs up to Sophie.
Okay. Oh, I think she might be giving her a call. I'm sorry about that.
Is there a timeline on this, or can we discuss it?
Yeah, we could.
I just think because what's the timeline? What is the date that they need to know by?
So next week, it's in 2 weeks. We do have our June 10th board meeting where we could talk about it, but the FSBA conference is the 11th, 12th, 13th. Is that right? And so the person would participate in that. So we could talk about it on the.
I think that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, have everybody
considering
here.
we're missing 2 members at this point, and both of them seem to be off.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. The other thing, and I know I can send this by email, is we want to also start talking about the legislative committee. It's an early session this coming year. And so, we typically have about 3 members on the legislative committee. It was Ms. Edmond, myself, and Ms. Peters this past year. And we work kind of in the early part to put together a platform that then, of course, the rest of the board has input on. We've worked out a timeline about when the workshop is. We think it'd be the mid-August workshop to first discuss the platform. And so if that's mid-August, then that committee would probably want to be able to work a little bit in June, a little bit in July to have a platform ready to talk about at the workshop. So between now and June 10th, also please consider if you'd like to volunteer to be on the legislative committee for the school board. Okay. Last thing, administrative also, is a date for our training has proved very difficult. So between Eckerd College and the 9 of us who would attend, so there's 2, if at least the folks who are here could check, there's 2 that are available. One is Thursday, July 4th, and one is, July 24th, Thursday, July 24th. Thank you. And the other is Monday, September 22nd, with the preference being the 22nd. The September 22nd. So could September 22nd work for everybody? Monday, September 22nd?
Yeah.
Ms. Peters, yeah. Mr. Hendrick, we already checked with you. Yep. And with you as well. Okay, so let's just confirm with Ms. Edmond and Mrs. Meyer, and except Monday, September 22nd. Might be that day then. Okay. Thank you. Anything else I'm not thinking of? No. Okay. So now have a great summer, and thank you for an amazing school year.
Congratulations to all of our graduates.
Yes, exactly.
It's a very exciting time. I know that we've been sidetracked a little bit with obviously very important business, but I just want to extend my congratulations to those students and especially their parents. It's an exciting time, and it's a long road to get here, and it should be celebrated. So I'm excited to attend.
There it goes. Me too. It's going to be a great week. All right. Take care. Adjourned.